Nations have imposed restrictions, especially from high-risk countries, coming into their nations and out of their nations. This is basically to limit the spread of coronavirus. The good work of relevant agencies, such as the National Center for Disease Control, needs to be sustained. And a way to sustain this is to ensure there are...
Honorable colleagues, please, can we maintain some silence? The motion is about restricting flights into Nigeria, as has been done by other countries, so that we don't take things for granted and open our doors to the importation of this deadly virus. I think it's important enough for us to... Honorable Sai, can you please go back to your seat? Actually, still, please go back to your seat. I mean, if this isn't important, then what is? Please, let us listen in silence to the motion, and I'm sure many other members want to contribute. This is actually very, very important. Honorable Chawai, please go ahead.
I'm talking about includes regulations of gatherings, regulations on travels. Fortunately, NYSC has been suspended, which is a commendable act by the government in order to curb the spread of coronavirus. The airline operators of Nigeria yesterday gave a recommendation after their sitting that the federal government should limit entry into Nigeria via air to only 2 locations, Lagos and Abuja. This is basically to ensure so that the nation can curb and manage the spread of coronavirus. Now, this is an advice that the nation can evaluate and see if fit to implement. Protocols that need to be put in place in case business premises are shut down. Other nations have shut down offices, schools, and business offices. Now, what protocols do we have in place when such or if such happens in Nigeria? There should be an awareness campaign currently going on so that people can actually envisage that there might be a possibility of closing business premises. And when these business premises are closed, what are we going to do to ensure work carries on at least to a reasonable degree? If schools are closed down, how are we going to manage the situation when it comes to things like homeschooling and things like that? Palliative measures are measures that have been introduced by various governments across the world. Fortunately, the CBN has come up with its own policy measure in order to provide succor and assuage the sufferings of Nigerians because of the spread of coronavirus. Palliative measures such as the reduction in the interest rate, extension of moratorium, and the 50 billion naira credit targeted at specific sectors. Now, this is highly commendable, but more needs to be done to ensure that succor is provided to the nation. Beyond that, sporting activities, gatherings, and other social activities have either been suspended, deferred, or banned across the world. Nigeria needs to look inwards and implement something similar. Thank you very much. I so move.
Thank you. Honorable Rotimi.
Nations have imposed restrictions, especially from high-risk countries, coming into their nations and out of their nations. This is basically to limit the spread of coronavirus. The good work of relevant agencies, such as the National Center for Disease Control, needs to be sustained. And a way to sustain this is to ensure there are...
Honorable colleagues, please, can we maintain some silence? The motion is about restricting flights into Nigeria, as has been done by other countries, so that we don't take things for granted and open our doors to the importation of this deadly virus. I think it's important enough for us to... Honorable Sai, can you please go back to your seat? Actually, still, please go back to your seat. I mean, if this isn't important, then what is? Please, let us listen in silence to the more motion, and I'm sure many other members want to contribute. This is actually very, very important. Honorable Chawai, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Dear colleagues, my name is Prince Rotimi Abuse, representing Koshofe Federal Constituency of Lagos. Mr. Speaker, coronavirus, the monster called coronavirus. I will say here that we've taken the mercy of God for granted in Nigeria and in Africa at large. When this started, to the glory of God, we didn't have any issue in Nigeria. But the moment we had one case, we should have probably brought up a motion like this. Now we have 2 cases, known. 3 cases, known. Who knows what is happening in the remote areas of Nigeria? Nobody knows. People are coming from our land borders to Nigeria because there is a case in Ghana. You can take a bus from Ghana and come to Nigeria. We are not taking care of our borders, our land borders. Yes, we are talking about our airports. We have to do something in that regard. This is not a matter of whether we want to be in partnership with one country or the other. No. I don't want to go into those areas being mentioned by the mover or the sponsor of the motion. But I would just suggest, Mr. Speaker, dear colleagues, that, yes, we have 2 major airports functioning, like Abuja and Lagos. Not only that, if you could recollect, several countries from Europe to America, Asia, Australia, and Africa have been developing means to curtailing the continued spread of coronavirus from ravaging their citizens. Schools have been closed, sporting events have been cancelled, several social activities have been suspended. Why don't we do that here in Nigeria? Yes, Ministry of Health is doing something great. Give kudos to Lagos State government. We thank God that it started from Lagos. And Lagos was able to arrest the situation. But now we have 3 cases. Gentlemen and ladies, it is important that members of the society, they do not engage in handshake any longer. Even we have to start from this city, from members of the National Assembly. We've taken everything for granted, Mr. Speaker. So, dear colleagues, this is a very serious motion that we must take a stand today. We love our people, the people that we are governing, even though we do not, I'm sorry, I don't want to refer to any other. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Bensi, what's your amendment?
Nigeria should immediately sign a most favored nation arrangement with Singapore and any other certified free country on the mass production and supply of test kits and vaccines and other relevant infrastructure needed to aid the efforts in eradicating this pandemic.
To sign an agreement with the most favored country for test kits, supply of test kits. Another infrastructure needed to combat the virus. Any seconder?
Federal Consensus of Akwa Ibom State. Mr. Speaker, I want to come under Order 9, Rule 8, specifically page 45, Mr. Speaker. My point of order is to call for suspension of debate on this motion. And Mr. Speaker, dear colleagues, I want to plead, Mr. Speaker, that there are critical decisions that we are taking in the course of amendment to this motion. And these decisions too many factors has to be taken into consideration before we take this decision that is going to affect the entirety of this country. Mr. Speaker, we are discussing ways of ameliorating this pandemic in Nigeria. Issues of addressing the economy, issues of getting finances to be able to support the federal government and agencies to fight this pandemic and to be prepared as a country would come under this debate. So my position, Mr. Speaker, a while ago, we've taken a decision that we should not close schools. We've taken a decision that we should not ask people to worship from their homes. Mr. Speaker, for the fact that God has...
No. That amendment was carried. It was carried. The one about worship.
So, Mr. Speaker, we are in the course as we are going to do on this debate. We are going to take, and Nigerians are looking at us, and Nigerians are expecting us to take proactive decisions, which we have done as this House under your leadership. So there are critical, very critical positions that we must take, and it needs critical thinking. It needs research. Mr. Speaker, it needs thinking out of the box. So we should not be rushed, we should not be in a rush and a hurry to take decisions. Maybe tomorrow we come to rescind. I would crave the indulgence of Mr. Speaker and the leadership in this House that we suspend debate on this and ask members to go and gather and do research, and then we come on a particular day, whether it is tomorrow, to be able to take concrete decisions both on economic angle, on the financial point, so that we can arrive at a concluding decision in this House, a resolution that would affect this country. That is my humble submission.
Honorable, debate is even coming too late, first of all. Second of all, I think under our rules, we have, and I appreciate your point, we don't take knee-jerk decisions. But because of the severity, as we are sitting here, there have been several breaking news, and I can announce it. So time is of the essence. Delay can be dangerous. And if we make the wrong decision, we have sufficient provisions in our rules to, one, bring a motion for rescission. That's already there. We can do that in 24 hours. Two, whatever decision we make today does not foreclose any other decision in future. So whilst I appreciate your point, I think it's more important when you balance the equities that we carry on with this debate, and we don't want a situation where we've been debating now for an hour. So it's been an hour of wasted time. And so all points of order must be brought timeously. And yours is coming an hour after the debate, and it does not meet that requirement of timeous. In fact, we have even hit the gavel. Or rather, we've continued, we're just taking amendments. Actually, we're just taking amendment. But your point is appreciated. And members, to Honorable Luke's point, please let us, before we, and that's why there was a time something was almost negative for no reason. So please let us listen to ourselves and think hard. We're deep thinkers. We're meant to be deep thinkers, and we can make decisions at the spur of the moment when it's critical for those decisions to be made. So, Honorable, thanks for the observation, though. Honorable Kiruka.
Of the hospital ill-treated her. They treated her like an outcast. And after a few days, the test came out to be negative. But after a few days again, the woman died. And yet, she didn't die of coronavirus, but she died because of the treatment and stigmatization that the hospital personnel meted to her. So my amendment is that quarantine areas and hospitals should be equipped and put in place, and personnel should be trained to know how to treat, to relate to people, because it's not enough for somebody to say, I'm testing you, and at that point you are off the track because you don't know what to come. And even when you test negatives, they have also stigmatized you to the extent that you're losing your dignity, and somebody dies from that. So I believe that we should train our personnel and have qualified personnel to take care of this pandemic situation. That's my amendment.
Ibadan Southeast, Ibadan Northeast Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I've been listening to all the amendments, and I concur with it. But there's a one that we have to pay attention to, sir. Increasing the manpower in our port of entry, airport, seaport, and our land port of entry. I don't believe that we should close the school down, or we should close the mosque, or where everybody is gathering. If we have to do that, what happened to our market? Are we going to close all the markets down in Nigeria? Are we going to close down all the hospitals? I think we should increase, my amendment is to increase the manpower in our port of entry, so that we can have these youth that don't have a job, we can create 2 months or 3 months temporary employment for them, so they can able to, the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Finance can work together. That's my amendment. Thank you, sir.
Okay, those in support of the motion as amended, please say aye. Those against, please say nay. The ayes have it. So, honorable colleagues, thank you. This matter has been thoroughly debated. If there are other issues that we have not thought about concerning this subject matter, please, members are at liberty to bring it up tomorrow or